They said the taste of her stew could make a man forget where he was going. They said once you ate from her pot, no other food in the city would ever satisfy you again. But what no one asked was this: how does one woman feed an entire city and never feed herself? By the time the truth surfaced, the city had already paid the price. Once upon a time, in a Nigerian city that never truly slept, where generators hummed like restless spirits and the roads stayed warm long after sunset, there lived a woman known as Mama Asabe. To call her rich was an understatement. To call her powerful was still not enough. Mama Asabe was large, chubby, and commanding, not in clumsiness, but in abundance. Her body carried the fullness of success, the kind that comes from never knowing hunger again. She dressed in expensive lace, gold resting heavily on her wrists and neck, and when she entered a room, conversations paused. At the center of the city stood her pride, the gilded pot. Every day, the ritual repeated itself. Before sunrise, lines formed. Bankers, traders, politicians, mechanics, market women. People who had no reason to share space shared it anyway. They weren't just hungry. They were drawn. If you haven't eaten at Asabe's today, people would say, then you haven't really eaten. The food itself seemed ordinary. Rice, amala, soup, stew. But the taste did something strange. It comforted. It soothed. It quieted something deep inside the eater. People left full, yet already longing for the next visit. And yet, there was one thing no one questioned. Mama Asabe never ate. She sat on a raised platform, fanning herself slowly, smiling as the city fed from her hands. She watched every plate empty, every satisfied sigh, but her own plate remained untouched. Every day, the city returned. Until one day, something changed. A young man named Tunde arrived. Tunde was new, fresh from the village, carrying sharp eyes and old wisdom. He was hired to scrub pots and clean floors, the kind of work that keeps you invisible. Unlike the others, Tunde was not allowed to eat from the main kitchen. He survived on bread and roadside food, and because of that, he remained awake. He noticed the silence. The kitchen did not sound like a kitchen. No laughter, no shouting, no stolen bites. The cooks moved as though guided, their faces distant, their motions exact. He noticed the ingredients too. Too much food came in. Yet the flavor carried a depth that peppers and onions alone could not explain. One evening, while scrubbing a massive pot, Tunde overheard two elderly women whispering near the back gate. "She is growing," one said. "No," the other replied softly. "She's getting heavier, but inside, she is thinning." Tunde began to watch Mama Asabe more closely. Her wealth increased, her size increased, but her eyes looked tired, her steps dragged. It was as if the earth itself resisted her movement. The city was feeding, but someone was paying. Because of that, curiosity became Tunde's burden. He stayed late one night, long after the doors closed and the workers left, their minds fogged with satisfaction. A single room remained lit. The private preparation room, the place no one entered. The air around it felt wrong, heavy, like the moment before rain breaks. Through a narrow opening, Tunde saw Mama Asabe standing before the master pot. There was no fire beneath it, yet it stirred. She spoke words that did not belong to the city, words older than roads, older than money. She held a small silver object in her hand, etched with symbols of harvest and debt. She did not scream. She did not struggle. She offered something of herself, quietly. The pot responded. Its color deepened. The aroma thickened, heavy with comfort and longing. In that moment, Tunde understood. This was not cooking. This was exchange. The stories his grandmother once told returned to him. Stories of women who fed the world not with food, but with spirit. Stories of covenants that bind giver and receiver. "I give," Mama Asabe whispered, "so they may never be satisfied elsewhere." Because of that, everything made sense. The city was not loyal by choice. It was bound. Each meal tied them closer. Each visit deepened the hunger. As the restaurant expanded, the demand grew. New locations, longer lines, louder praise. But Mama Asabe began to change. She grew larger, yes, but not stronger. Her breath shortened. Her voice weakened. She could no longer walk without help. She had mistaken abundance for limitlessness. Tunde saw her clearly now. She was not cruel. She was trapped. She had made a bargain thinking she could afford it. But the city was endless. Until finally, the day came. The Great Jubilee. The city poured in like floodwater. The chants rose. The hunger demanded satisfaction. Inside her private room, Mama Asabe sat still. There was nothing left. The silver object rested in her palm. Her hands trembled. Outside, the city called her name. Not in love, but in need. She closed her eyes. "This is all I have," she whispered. And she gave it. The pot answered violently. The aroma surged through the building, overwhelming, intoxicating. The food went out. The city ate. And ever since that day, the city remembers. The first bite tasted like nothing. Not bitterness, not sweetness. Nothing. The silence spread faster than the aroma ever had. The bond snapped. When the door to the private room was opened, Mama Asabe remained alive, but emptied. The woman who once filled rooms now barely filled her clothes. The debt had been collected. The restaurant closed quietly. People returned to their homes. But for years, many claimed food no longer satisfied them the way it once had. Mama Asabe returned to her village, a small woman by the river, watching water pass, never cooking again. Tunde grew old carrying the lesson. Power that feeds on self without rest will always collapse. And the sweetest meals are often paid for with hidden hunger. In this life, there is no free feast. When someone gives endlessly, ask what they are losing. Because even the deepest pot eventually runs dry.